Good evening, everybody, to anybody who's on my time zone in South Africa. Good evening to you. And again, hello to everybody, wherever you might be, either watching this today or in the future when the recording goes out, which I assume will be made available. My name is Vuyisa Qabaka. But again, since we are now building this friendship over the course of the next 40 minutes, you're welcome to call me Vu or Chief. I'm a partner at a company called HYBR Group. We are a Pan-African innovation advisory firm. We have a team predominantly in Nigeria, but we have some people in South Africa and some associates of ours in Kenya. But we also have teams disparately outside of the continent as well, in Paris, in Dublin, Ireland, in London. We're in the process of setting up our London office at the moment. So I'm grateful to be here. In my other hats that I wear, I'm also an angel investor as a private individual, and I've been a co-founding member of an equity crowdfunding platform here in South Africa called Uprise.Africa. So please welcome to check it out. In fact, it's one of the many ways. Again, the type of investments I do personally normally we're focused on the technology side predominantly, but I've also of late been investing using a very fun new way working with crowds. So it's kind of like quasi crowdfunding, but it's actually using a stokvel framework and model. And some of those businesses are doing exceptionally well in South Africa. And again, really looking forward to sharing the success of those models over the past 2 years. And how we've achieved it and expanding those models even further. Because I feel there are parts, and I know there was a point in time in startup circles, we had some ventures that we, just before COVID, I think, potentially could pilot this model with that didn't come together as well as I would have wanted. But I think the model itself is here to stay. And I've been in chats with people who run these stokvel models to see how we can replicate some of these models for long-term benefit and growth. So I'm grateful to be here. So SANDRAS, you're welcome to come back and we can have a chat about what you guys have been up to the last 3 or 4 days. And we can ask me any questions. I mean, I'm happy to take questions from the entrepreneurs as well. If you've got any questions about your funding journey. In my time building businesses, I've raised every type of funding that you can imagine. So everything from, grants and competitions to government and DFI funding to loans, convertible notes from investors, and equity investment from investors as well. So I'm familiar with term sheets. I'm familiar with approaches. I personally, I don't have a personal recommendation or favorite. I just feel, when you're building a company, you ought to know what type of funding is actually best for you. And then coincidentally, actually, interestingly, one of my friends in the ecosystem, Orny Power, is actually writing a book that actually expands more broadly around the many different forms of capital that early stage ventures should be considering and thinking about, especially with those who are kind of driving impact based funding. So yeah, but I'm open. I'm here to share. So I'm here to share what I know and my experiences in this space.
Okay, and so my question would be, what do you find impressive about entrepreneurs who come to you looking for investments? In other words, what impresses you if a founder comes to you and say, "Hey, I'm looking for funding, Chief"?
When I started out, SANDRAS, I used to be impressed by everything. And as the longer I get into this, the more cynical I find myself to become, and the less impressive I find myself to become. But this is the beauty of this, right? What my kind of, I mean, there's nothing that can replace the pure passion and commitment. And again, experiencing human commitment to something is something about it that's magnetic, that's really impressive. But I think an experienced investor, firstly, obviously gets attracted by that. but more than just the passion. And I think in our continent, specifically in Africa, people tend to supposedly feel that's enough. They kind of convince themselves that no, they'll see my passion. No, they'll understand where I'm coming from. That might be true, but I think entrepreneurs need to really take very well considered thinking around what next after someone is connected with you emotionally, connected with your passion, connected to your commitment to your concept, connected with your idea. I mean, the one thing I've never found problematic about innovators on our continent is ideas, the quality of ideas. The one thing I've never questioned is the quality of the ideas. But beyond the quality of the idea, what else are you bringing to the table? Yeah. What else do you have to offer? Is it a unique set of skills that you have to offer? Is it a unique kind of opportunity to unlock a particular market that you have to offer? Is it a unique approach to the market that you potentially bring to the table? And not enough venture founders think through this particular element deep enough. So I guess, passion, commitment, and all of that is important because people need to connect with you. You need to be likable. You need to be, you have to have energy. I mean, if you're coming up with something excited, you need to be excited, not the people. You firstly need to be excited to get others excited with you.
I see.
But then beyond that, what else do you have to, what other value do you offer beyond that?
And how do they convince you now? Like, look, there are 5 people with ideas and concepts and passion. How do you say like, oh, this one is different, this one is going to make it, or this one is really ready to take some money? What do you look at? What can they show you?
There's a number of things, right? There's 2 things for me I love, and that is smart, intelligent people who've thought through their problem set. And they've kind of, they've really immersed themselves in researching it, in deeply understanding it. I never feel comfortable when I know more about your industry than you do, and you're the founder of a solution. The idea might be great, but I have more knowledge of that sector, that customer profile, or that industry and that market than you do. And I mean, yes, I do have an advantage. We have a company that does work in multiple sectors, and we get exposed to different kind of client profiles and different kind of problem sets in the work that we do. So I do get to see and kind of understand a lot of some, especially the challenging areas in Africa, whether it's financial inclusion or education, or so I do have a kind of a broad view, across the continent of some of the top solutions that are working in those spaces. But what I personally love, is someone who's so engaged and so thoughtful and so knowledgeable, okay, about the industry. Because that's when I believe, okay, you've taken the time to understand the problem set deeply and sufficiently enough. Okay, so that's the first thing that impresses me. The second thing that I think that deeply impresses me is someone who said, with everything that I don't have, okay, my passion still drove me to go and do something. Okay, I mean, we are a continent of don't have any, generally, there's always some adversity that we faced with. And that's why it's always impressive for me when you have entrepreneurs from Zambia, entrepreneurs from Ethiopia, entrepreneurs from Nigeria. There's a certain special type of character, persona, individual who looks beyond that.
Somebody who has taken action. Because a lot of people say, I've got an idea, but you give me money, then I'll take action.
This is the thing. And again, for me, Sandras, I've always maintained that one of the things that's critically missing on our continent around the subject of educating early stage venture founders is a deeper appreciation of money. Naturally, a lot of us don't generally have it. So the context when people come through is that somehow they're entitled to be invested in, that somehow the core value that they bring to the table is innovation. Okay. Yes, I mean, in theory, you can say in a continent of 1.2 billion people, when a bunch of them are able to actually generate some new ideas, it's actually something to be excited about. But the reality, and this is where I appreciate countries like Israel and I appreciate Switzerland, Taiwan, because entrepreneurs are not the norm. In Africa, we're trying to sell this idea that entrepreneurship should be for everybody, that everybody could make it in a business. The reality is it's not true. The effort, the sacrifice, the ingenuity, the passion and tenacity that it takes, the ability to raise money. The ability to raise money it's a lot of effort. It needs a special, unique, very focused, very dedicated person to do it. It's not something to play around with. In fact, for me, the majority, I would say about 70% of people who try to start a business should rather actually work for somebody and be okay with that idea of working for somebody. But I also know that we also in a very volatile market economy that jobs are not always formally structured in many places.
I think I do agree with you very much on that point, that not everybody should start a business. I know entrepreneurship is glamorized. And then I think also that the worst time to start a new business where you're not sure about is when like you're in debt, you are broke, and you're getting worse and worse in debt. I think that's the time to just get a job. At least by month end, somebody will pay you, as opposed to burning a deeper hole.
Look, SANDRAS, we all lose money. I mean, part of this game is that you expect to lose some money here and there. But it's always so sad for me when I have to lose money over some silly stuff, No, I couldn't pay my rent. I couldn't concentrate for a whole month. Or no, I couldn't afford my car payment. I drive an Audi A3 and I could, literally the whole company must suffer because you couldn't make a vehicle payment and because the startup is not paying you enough money. It always breaks my heart when people have taken thought around what it's going to take. I mean, there's some beautiful stories on the continent that I think people can lean on that, again, I maybe don't get enough showcase because I don't know, maybe people see them negatively. I mean, you're familiar with the story of South, but many people don't know that the co-founders of South, the two founders are actually a couple, and they come with a strong kind of consulting background. And, they first actually pitched at one of the competitions we ran, the Startup South Africa Summit, where they raised their first seed funding. But one of the things that most people don't know is that Aisha Pando sold her wedding ring, sold their house, sold their car, all in the effort to kind of sustainably support the vision they had for their business. This is let alone quitting their jobs. I mean, that's a whole other story. It's like, should you still have a job and try and build a business? For me, it's one of those things where focus becomes a focal point in that kind of conversation. For me, it's like, if you are great and you're focused and you need to maintain a lifestyle, you want to, hold on to a day job, you can, but it takes longer to build your venture when you've got a job, because naturally it's a time focused kind of conundrum. So you can do some side consulting, a bit of extra work to sustain your life. Nobody's saying be an entrepreneur, sacrifice and be poor. Nobody's saying that. It's just that, there are different set of requirements when you make certain different choices. So when you do quit a job to focus on your company, you might find the reality that you might have to sell some things, some assets, some personal mementos, but you got to retain your focus. It's like, I know that I can always replace my wedding ring because I can sell it and buy another one in 5 years' time when I've made it. Or I know that I can, leave my house, sell it, rent someplace, get the cash, build the business, 5 years' time, buy another house. Okay. And in fact, this has been the story of many, many entrepreneurs who, again, that's why I'm saying, everybody focuses on the I've made it narrative of the story. Nobody ever focuses on, what happened in the first 10 years before you made the press release that said, I made it. What were you doing? I mean, one of my favorite personal stories in South Africa, which most people don't know, is of private property. I don't know if you're familiar with this platform, private property. So the founder of private property, his name is Justin Clark. And again, bless his soul for having an amazing woman, Sue Clark, who's an amazing dynamic lady who was a corporate executive in the advertising space. But basically, the thing for me that's always very interesting and unique about Justin's story is the fact that in the first 8 years of his life, he was an able-bodied person, building his company. And again, innovating in a space that at the time had not digitized, which is property and real estate sales. So it was a hard slog of kind of proving the market that no, in time, this is the future. You're coming in early. Again, a lot of sacrifice. Then he was involved in a very unfortunate car accident, but he was able to retain his life. But unfortunately, this ended up with him being in a wheelchair. Again, but he had such tenacity and such focus of mind that he overlooked that adversity and he focused on his vision. Okay. And the story of Justin as well is that I think it took him the first 12 years of the venture before they broke even. Imagine SANDRAS, they broke even after 12 years. And then, but his exit, eventually after 15 years of being in that business, was in excess of $200 million. Okay. So again, if I had to ask you, anybody, okay, if you listen to that story and the only thing you ever hear is the exit at the end after 15 years, okay, yes, it's going to motivate you to believe that it's possible. But if I told you the entire story, how motivated are you going to be to go through all of that? The adversity, the challenge, I mean, imagine as a man, your wife has to look after you for 12 years before your company actually breaks even. I think the first time Justin got a salary at private property was after 9 or 10 years. Okay. So his entire life for the first 9 years of that business was sustained by a very supportive life partner, business partner, person who believed in his vision.
My lecturer said, there is no such thing as a high growth part-time venture.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And by the way, I mean, we always do this, right? We always have these narratives of overnight successes. And for me, there's just so much depth. I mean, one of the most recent ones, for those who've been paying attention in the e-commerce space is YappyChef. Yes. I mean, I can tell you the founders of YappyChef, the first 5 years didn't get a salary from the company. Yeah. And again, for those people who are tuning in now and watching, look, I'm sure Eric, Sarah, Lelemba in the past 4 days have shared lots of kind of practical narratives of this. But SANDRAS knows when I come in, to me, it's kind of like, let's talk real. If you want to learn about how to raise funding, if you want to learn about the mechanics of doing that, Startup Circles has got all that content. Go and take a course, go do the academic stuff. But if you want to be real and kind of be very focused, I'm going to tell you, the thing about being successful in entrepreneurship, it's a number of factors, not one singular kind of thing. It's important that you have a theoretical foundation. It's important you understand the different types of money, the capital that's available. It's important that you understand the different types of approaches you can make to investors. But for me, there's never any substitute for your authenticity. So I can give you tips and tricks and hacks, but those things are going to be what either I've done or I've worked with my ventures to do. What is your context in your local reality? Okay. What is the opportunity genuinely around how you're going to approach it?
Yes.
And that's where your own individual story and their own individual environment factors in.
I'll go into some of the questions that are coming from the audience, and then you could do a rapid fire, rapid answer to some of these questions. Sarah Amani is asking, how do we know what type of funding is best for me? How do I know whether I go for VC or angel? And then there's a second part to this.
I can touch on this because there's two schools of thought on this. The one school of thought, like I said, your foundation must be built on theory. Okay, so naturally, if your foundation is built on theory, you will then understand that there are sequences and flows to capital raising. But the disclaimer I make to this, in terms of stage of business, in terms of stage growth, it's up to how you execute, how quickly you are able to execute, determines how quickly you adapt to the next phase of funding requirement. Make sense? So, for example, at ideation phase, you're going to have friends, you're going to have your own savings, you're going to have different approaches. But if you are an excellent executor and you know something that takes someone else 6 months to do takes you 3 weeks. Good for you. You can now move on to the next phase. So for me, the theory, the only time the theory becomes contextually irrelevant is when you have someone who's really a diligent executor and is someone who's really, I mean, for example, if you think about Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, by the time that he came up with the concept for Twitter, he had already built and sold 2 other ventures. So by the time Twitter came around, he knew he had access to the network of investors. He knew he was onto a good idea. And within 4 months, SANDRAS, I don't know if people know the story about Twitter, within 4 months raised in excess of $1 million of valuation and seed capital to kickstart Twitter. Okay. And I think even the initial first investor that came in, there was not even a business case. It was a 1-page concept note that he did. I mean, for example, for us, when I was part of the team that started Uprise Africa, one of the stories that people don't know is that our angel investor in Uprise Africa invested in us on a 2-page concept note. Okay, if I had to go look back at that 2-page concept note, I'll be thinking to myself, damn, was this person crazy or we didn't know? But I think we were able to do that because of the profiles of people, myself, Patrick Schofield, etc., or people who are already on board with the project. The other school of thought in the SANDRAS is that people need to be bold. Sometimes there's something innocent about people who are bold, but they're bold in the right way. They're smart, they're intelligent, they are legitimately credible. They, you literally, the minute you meet them, that first 5 minutes, you already know there's something special about this person. So never take away from yourself that opportunity to be bold. And this is why, I'm sure in your program, you do this. You teach the elevator pitch. The reason why you have an elevator pitch is because, yes, you can bump into somebody and literally pitch them. I mean, I've pitched people in a retail store, in the aisle. So again, from one side of the aisle, pushing a trolley to the other side of the aisle while the person was shopping. And I'm pitching them my concept. Okay? And this is what elevator pitch is about. I mean, every time, whenever I go to Johannesburg and I visit one of the big banks, and I happen to come into the lift with one of the senior executives that I immediately recognize from LinkedIn, I'm there between that ground floor to wherever that executive is going. I'm thinking of the quickest ways to kind of get this person to sort of say, Vu, it was very nice to meet you. Here's my business card. Call me. You and I need to have half an hour. And I've been very fortunate in my life that I've had these kind of opportunities. So, I mean, I remember, meeting Stephen Kossoff, who's the former CEO of Investec. We were invited for a 10-minute coffee. You know how it goes with PAs, gatekeepers. And that 10-minute coffee turned into a 3-hour meeting because I had read somewhere that Stephen is very passionate about Mandela. So I started talking about all my Mandela stories. I found every Mandela story. I related Mandela stories from where I come from. So this guy was like, and in fact, his PA kept coming in and to say, hey, your next meeting. And the guy's like, no, I'm good. We're good here. In fact, just bring us some more. Just bring us some drinks. So my life has been very fortunate in this, that I've understood these things. I've understood that the minute you have that gift to be able to, really throw it out there and then connect with someone who's going to potentially affect something, it goes well. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chief. We're out of time, but I'll ask around what's your final advice to entrepreneurs right now, the ones who have existing businesses, they're trying to raise money. Is it true that there is money and you're looking for entrepreneurs, or there is no money, we just like to just watch entrepreneurs go through this?
Well, I can tell you there's definitely money, because we are now, a bunch of us are tracking where the money is going, who's signing checks. I mean, again, as you know, the fund that you associated with the startup circles, Enigma, is in the top 5 people. So they're signing checks, they're putting money into people's pockets. But again, one of our contacts in the ecosystem, Maxime, has written a tweet, and maybe you can share it with the participants, where he's literally, for $60, you can see everybody was invested in everybody on the continent in Africa between 2019 and 2021. So again, we've had over $2 billion of funding that's kind of gone into early stage ventures on the continent in the last 2 years. So he's literally compiled this effort of a list, and you can have access to it for as little as $60. But I'm sure maybe SANDRAS will make a deal for Startup Circles community or Founders Circle, and you might be able to get it for 50% off or something. But I'll leave that to SANDRAS to do. But for me, there's definitely money. So know that there's money. The question is going to be, what about your idea? What about your concept? What about your venture absolutely deserves to be funded? Okay. Only you can answer that question. But some of the kind of hacks that I would definitely put out there is, again, don't have a sense of limitation by your geography, especially if you're building digital solutions. Okay. Really, proverbially, the world is very easy to access. Platforms like LinkedIn have made it incredibly easy for you to connect to any VC, to any funder anywhere across the world. So if you are stuck in Lesotho, if you're stuck in Zambia, if you're stuck in Malawi, don't be limited by your immediate kind of environment. Obviously, naturally explore it because you're immediately right there, especially in our COVID environment now. But at the same time, elevate your process to connect beyond, seek out referrals, seek out warm introductions. So you've made a very good choice by being part of Startup Circles. Reach out to SANDRAS and the team. Be coachable in your process and approach, and be guided in terms of who you potentially can meet. And at the same time, when you get a referral, please, guys, take it seriously, because SANDRAS has taken plenty of time to build the network of people that is brought into the circle. You met one of my good friends, Eric, just probably yesterday. I mean, these guys, it's work to do this. It's years and years of network building. It's years and years of trust. So don't take the trust that you've been given and throw it away so easily. Really work hard, be prepared, be organized, be professional and show up very positively as you build your solution. People will respect you for that. The other thing that I must also remind founders as well is that build a system. Okay, where success comes in is when you take value and you apply leverage, and then it brings about success in your system, in your business. So build a system. There's this whole notion of self-made is a bit of a misnomer. There are terms and conditions to self-made. Self-made people have great systems. Okay, yes, they're the front face, they're the person in front of you, but there's an amazing system of people and technology and things that supports that success in the front end. So already yourself be committed to building that system for your own venture and your own business. And again, lastly, as a point, for every investor, the one common thing about an investor is an expectation around a return of investment. So be very clear about what value and what incentive investing in you will provide the investor. There's nobody in this world that I know, even Jeff Bezos, doesn't have money burning his pocket that he wants to give it away for free. Okay, so if you have this notion that somehow just by coming up with an idea, just because you had a brain fart, you now deserve some kind of investment, forget about it. Okay, nobody will ever invest in you. If you're lucky enough that you get a dumb investor, good luck to you, because sometimes it's also as bad to get. There's a thing in this space we call smart money and dumb money. So it's sometimes it's actually more problematic to you as an innovator to get someone who gives you money with no clear indication around why they're doing it. It actually tends to lead to more problems to you than it's worth. So remember that money comes from somewhere, value where it comes from. And again, I appreciate that, don't take none of those things for granted. Don't take contacts for granted that people make to you. So like platforms like Startup Circles, don't take money that people invest in you for granted. Be accountable and be professional, and good luck. I mean, the opportunity is there for you guys to succeed.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chief. It's always great listening to you and your commitment to entrepreneurs across the continent. I love what you say around don't be restricted by geography. And that's why we started Startup Circles, to make the circles bigger. Like you don't need to know someone, just join Startup Circles. Then now you're known. And then when you show progress, we introduce you. So everybody here has got equal access. You don't have to be in Cape Town, Lagos, Nairobi, or Cairo. So thank you very much, Chief. It's been good having you. Type 1 in the chat box to say thank you to the Chief. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, everybody, and all the best. We need more success stories on the continent. So work hard, and hopefully we'll see you in the ecosystem soon.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. It's really been great having Vuyisa Qabaka